continuing to have ongoing meetings and conversations here at the White House. And when we have any further developments, we'll let you know.
So the world is on high alert tonight. A national security meeting is still underway. It's been going on for about 3 hours at this point at the White House as they talk about all the options that are on the table. With regard to Syria, they are insisting at the White House that they have proof that Syria did carry out, that the leadership in Syria carried out this deadly chemical attack, the horrific pictures of which you see on the right-hand side of your screen. And those pictures have had a major impact on the president's thinking on all of this. Dozens of civilians were killed in this attack. You see children shaking from the byproduct of these horrific chemical weapons. I mean, the pictures are horrible. So Russia has denied that they had anything to do with this. They point the finger. Interestingly, today, their latest reason for it, or person that they believe is responsible, is Britain, saying that they staged a fake incident. Here's the UN ambassador today, Nikki Haley, having none of that. Watch.
If Russia had lived up to its commitment, there would be no chemical weapons in Syria, and we would not be here today. Russia can complain all it wants about fake news, but no one is buying its lies and its cover-ups.
Joining me now, Michael Waltz, former counterterrorism advisor to Vice President Dick Cheney, and retired U.S. Army Brigadier General Anthony Tata, who has experience planning multinational combat operations. And they join me right now. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here. General, you know,
thanks, Martha.
We understand that this meeting is going on. It's been going on for several hours now. What is your best take on what might be happening in there and the back and forth? We understand that there are reports anyway that the president and John Bolton want something more comprehensive, and that General Mattis is pushing back on that a bit.
Well, Martha, I think the first step was to confirm that the Syrian government actually did this, and it sounds like both the UK and France and us all agree that the Syrian government was in charge of this chemical attack. So that's box one checked, and now it is what type of response do we fulfill our national security strategy, which the two underpinnings are prevention of the spread of weapons of mass destruction and a international order based on the rule of law. So President Trump is right to respond here because this is our guiding document for national security. And as opposed to what Obama did back in 2013, turning the other cheek and letting the Russians handle it, President Trump is building a coalition, and it's more complicated when you have the UK, France, maybe Kingdom, Saudi Arabia, some of the others involved. You got to deconflict all that airspace. You got to, we're going to have jets in this thing. We're going to have bombers. It's going to be cruise missiles. And it's going to be, I think, a more prolonged campaign than what happened last time. And I think that's, we're going to destroy his means to deliver chemical weapons. And because he didn't get the message the first time, this needs to be a stronger message. And for all those who are arguing against it, they just need to look at our national security strategy that says we do not accept weapons of mass destruction as something that should be allowed in this world. And that is one thing that I think that most nations can agree upon, where there is a red line that we should respond.
Colonel Michael Waltz, let me bring you in to the discussion here. The reports are that General Mattis is concerned, as anyone would be when they weigh the outcome here potentially, about what the Russian reaction might be. I mean, it's one thing to go in and knock out air bases and knock out things that are fundamental to their ability to protect themselves. But what comes after that?
Well, there's some operational concerns that I'm sure General Mattis and the Joint Chiefs are putting before the president. Number one, we need to parse out Syrian assets and taking out those assets from Russian assets. Again, as the general pointed out, President Obama essentially turned his back to the situation, and Russia moved in force with a major naval base and a major air base now. And we've been seeing reports that the Syrians are actually moving their aircraft and their assets to intermingle and commingle with Russian assets to make that harder for us to do and to raise the risks of some type of escalation. The other thing that General Mattis will be putting before the president is we do have boots on the ground. We have around 2,000 American soldiers with the Kurds and the Arabs, and we need to be sure that they are postured and protected against any type of retribution and attack. Absolutely. And then finally, the Russians have put about 11 ships out of their naval base in Syria and Tartus out into the eastern Mediterranean. And we have to take those ships into account as we're moving our assets in. So there's a lot of moving pieces.
Russia, obviously, maneuvering, as you say, and watching all this very closely. Sergei Lavrov basically blamed the United Kingdom without saying as much. What do you make of that, General Tata?
Well,
Say, it's just another staged thing by the United Kingdom.
We need to remember that Russia is the master of disinformation and misinformation. They have an entire information operations military unit whose job it is to confuse people. And, that happened in our election, and it goes back to the Soviet Union days. They are masters at this. The big lie. I mean, the Soviet Union, now Russia, they invented the idea of the big lie. And so they're going to try to confuse the issue. They're going to try to fracture the coalition. They're going to do everything they can to protect that geopolitical interest they have in a warm water port in the Mediterranean. That's the real key for Russia here. And we can't forget that they have surface-to-air missiles that can shoot 80,000 feet into the sky, the SA-2. So it's a challenge that we face, but one that we must face.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Sobering conversation, and we'll see what we hear out of the White House. We're watching all of this very closely, and we could get information any minute, really. So thank you for being here.